Okay, let's just dive right in. The entire internet is buzzing about GPT-6, right? You've got Sam Altman teasing these incredible new features like memory and deep personalization, a model that supposedly remembers everything about you. And with all this hype, you can't help but think something really, really big is just around the corner.
And this quote, it just nails the current feeling perfectly. The buzz is so intense, you'd think artificial general intelligence has a confirmed arrival date for next week. The excitement is definitely there, but what's the real story?
Because the real story, as it usually is way more interesting and a whole lot more complicated than the hype would have you believe. So in this breakdown, we're going to cut through all of that noise and look at the actual evidence, what GP6's architecture will probably look like, what it can really do, and what its impact might actually be.
So here's the game plan. First, we'll tackle the hype machine head on. Then, we're going to pop the hood and look inside its new brain. From there, we'll see what it can do in the real world before getting into the huge AGI question. After that, we'll look at the societal impact. And finally, we'll even sketch out a plan B for AI, just in case. All right, first up, the GPT-6 hype machine. Before we get into the nitty-gritty tech stuff, we really need to understand this tidal wave of excitement that's building. This atmosphere of massive expectation is what's setting the stage for everything else we're going to talk about. Now for part two, a new kind of brain. Because underneath all that hype, the real story starts with the fundamental changes happening under the hood. We're talking about the architectural shifts that will define what this new model can actually do. And the scale of the upgrade here is just staggering. I mean, to put this in perspective, GPT-4 had a context window of about 32,000 tokens, and you can think of tokens as just pieces of words. The latest models, they're already hitting 1 million. GPT-6 is expected to blow way past that. This isn't just a small bump, it's the difference between remembering a chapter and remembering the entire library. But believe it or not, the context window isn't even the biggest game changer. Sam Altman has said people want memory, and it looks like GPT-6 is going to deliver it. And we're not talking about your browser history here. This is a persistent, encrypted memory module. It's the difference between a tool you have to re-explain your project to every single time and a genuine assistant who actually remembers what you're working on. And there is so much more. We're expecting true multimodality, which means it won't just juggle text and images, it'll natively process audio and video all in one system. It's also getting what's called a dynamic reasoning engine, so it can decide for itself how hard to think about a prompt. And crucially, it's developing agentic behavior. That means it won't just talk about tasks, it'll actually use tools like browsers and APIs to do them. It's becoming a doer, not just a talker. So what does all this incredible tech actually mean for us day to day? Well, that brings us to our third section, from chatbot to consultant. This is where we explore the real-world capabilities that come out of these new architectural foundations. With its massive context, it could potentially write, debug, and test entire applications from scratch. It could act like an expert consultant, running financial simulations or complex legal analyses. With true multimodality, you could feed it a video, and it could analyze frames and connect them to, say, a patient's medical history. And this all ties back to deep personalization, where it can pull from your own documents to offer truly contextual advice. Okay, but we have to have a quick reality check here. While the previous generation of models cut down on hallucinations significantly, and that's a huge deal, reduced is not the same thing as eliminated. The model will still make things up sometimes. So it's an incredibly powerful tool, but it is not an infallible one. All this power, it naturally leads to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? And that brings us to section 4, the AGI question. Let's look at the numbers and see how close we really are to what you might call artificial general intelligence. To understand where we're going, you have to look at where we've just been. The previous model, GPT-5, was already an absolute beast on benchmarks. It scored a staggering 94.6% on the Amy math competition. I mean, these are scores that were just unthinkable a few years ago. And it wasn't just math. It also hit 88.4% on graduate-level science questions. GPT-6 is expected to push these numbers even higher, maybe even matching or exceeding human expert performance across a whole bunch of domains. But here it is, the question everyone really, really wants answered. We see the scores, we see the capabilities, but is it AGI? The honest answer? Probably not. At least, not by the strictest definitions. GPT-6 might become what you could call AGI adjacent by outperforming human experts, but true AGI requires a lot more.
It needs things like autonomous learning after it's been deployed, genuine collaboration between different AI agents, and real metacognition, the ability to think about its own thinking. GPT-6 isn't expected to have those.
So when might we actually see it? Honestly, the experts are all over the map on this one. You've got some optimistic tech leaders betting on AGI as early as 2027, but then broader researcher surveys put the median forecast at about a 50% chance by 2047. It's pretty clear that nobody knows for sure.
This brings us to Section 5, our AI-powered future. Now we shift gears from what the tech can do to what it means for us, for our society, our jobs, and of course, our safety.
Despite the massive potential we've been talking about, the reality on the ground is still playing catch-up. One analysis found that AI is currently automating only about a third of the computer and math tasks that are actually used in the workforce. The potential is enormous, but real-world adoption always seems to lag behind the hype.
So, what does this actually mean for jobs? Well, we expect to see massive productivity gains for knowledge workers. So far, direct unemployment spikes tied to AI have been pretty muted, but we are seeing some early signs that hiring is cooling down for younger workers in highly exposed fields, and that means things like reskilling programs are going to become more important than ever.
Look, a model this powerful needs some serious safeguards. We're expecting a multi-layered approach. This includes something called deliberative alignment, which basically trains the model to reason about safety rules before it even responds. That's combined with always-on classifiers to check for harmful content. And all of this has to operate within a rapidly evolving regulatory world, like the EU's AI Act.
And now for our final section, the Plan B for AI. What happens if after all this buildup, GPT-6 is more of an incremental step than a revolutionary leap?
Well, the good news is the entire AI ecosystem doesn't depend on just one model. If GPT-6 underdelivers, OpenAI could pivot to smaller updates or more specialized agents. Plus, the competitive landscape is just fierce. You have Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, and a thriving open-source community, all ensuring that progress will continue no matter what.
So that's the real picture on GPT-6, the architecture, the capabilities, and the big societal implications. It's definitely poised to be a major milestone. But the final question still remains. Is GPT-6 the revolutionary game changer we've all been promised, or are we simply getting